Okay. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. So by learning, we should have Beis Hamikdash immediately. We're holding Daf Chaf Beis, that means 22, Amud Aleph, 22a. And the words start, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Aimer. Yeah, is that correct, Rabbi Naftali?
Yeah.
So, we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says that you can't write a get on any paper parchment that could be forged. That means that you could erase it and no one would know the difference. For example, if it was already had an erasure on the paper, that means that the coating on the paper was already cleared off. You can't tell it when you're erasing it the second time. You can only tell it the first time.
Write on a get.
So you can't write a get on a paper like that because there may have been a condition on the get.
What do we do today?
Today, if you erase something, you can see that it's erased. You see the scratching off. They use a quill on a art paper, yeah. So if you would scratch something off, it would be you would see that there was something that was erased. Well, you also can't use this unprocessed hide. It's called diphthera. Over there also, you won't be able to tell if something was erased. Well, Amar Reb Chia Barasi Mishmei De'ula, Reb Chia Barasi says in the Mabula Gimel Eirsin. There's three types of hides, three types of leather or parchments, but they're not really the real parchment. We're not even going to mention the real parchment. The real parchment goes under a different category. These are three unprocessed parchments. First one is called matzah. Second one is called chifa. The third one is called diphthera. And he explains what this is. Matzah k'mashmai. Matzah is the way it sounds. Matzah is like an unprocessed bread. You know, it wasn't let to rise or anything. That's d'lei maliach, v'lei kamiach, v'lei afetz. You didn't use the salt in the tanning process. You didn't use the flour in the tanning process. And you didn't put the gall nuts in the tanning process. So basically, the three steps of the tanning process, you didn't do any of them. You have to pull off, when you tan the leather, you have to pull off all the fat that's attached to it. It's a big job to scrape it. So you scraped it already, so it's clean, but it's not. It wasn't processed with those agents that are put on it. Lamai hilchasa. Why are you dividing this up into these categories? What is the significance of each of these categories? It says Leitzos Shabbos. It's significant for carrying on Shabbos because each one is going to have a specific size that on Shabbos you're not allowed to carry, but you're not allowed to carry a certain measurement. You know, a person can walk out on Shabbos and there's lint on his sleeve, right? Doesn't mean he's carrying. It's nothing. It could be like a tiny seed or something that's, that fell somewhere on his clothing. It's not considered carrying because it's not big enough.
Snow or something.
Carrying snow. Usually for food, it's the size of a fig, a groigris, right? So what about this leather? Kamashire, how big is this leather, which would be considered carrying? Kedektani, as it taught, Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda says, Kedei Lotzer Mishkal Ktana. To carry, well, the amount that would take to wrap up a small weight, see a weight, they wanted to be careful that it doesn't get rubbed out. So they would wrap it in a leather. Now, the leather could be a non-processed leather, and they would wrap it in that. It would be sort of like a cushion for it, so it doesn't get rubbed out. And the kama, what type of weight are we talking about? Amarabai kiriva the river. Kiriva the river. Sounds like a quarter of a quarter. A very small weight that gets wrapped in this little piece of leather. That river de Pumpadisa, a quarter of the quarter that's used in Pumpadisa. Well, that would be the amount of carrying this matzah type of leather on Shabbos, something that could be used to hold as a casing for this weight. Chipa, 28 grams, according to the Koran comments. Ki chipa, what is chipa? The maliach v'lei kamiach v'lei afetz. you did one part of the process. There's 3 parts to the process of tanning. You did the first part. You put the salt on it to tan it. However, you didn't put the flour on it. You didn't put the gallnuts. What is this being specified for? What halachas is this relevant for? Like Shabbos also be carrying on Shabbos. For Kamashire, how much is considered carrying Kiditnan, as it was taught in a Mishnah, or Kedei Laseis Kameya? We learned about the type of leather that was used to carry an amulet. It was a casing for an amulet. They would put an amulet inside this and probably sew it up or something, and that would be a holder for this little amulet, which was probably a parchment of some sort. And people used to wear amulets, and so the amount of chipa, which would be a casing for the amulet, that would be considered carrying on Shabbos. Diphthera, what about diphthera, which is also the unprocessed leather that we're talking about in the Mishnah? This is much more processed. This is the maliach v'kamiach b'layafet. It was actually salted. It was actually, you put the flour on it. The flour also does something for the tanning of the leather. However, b'layafet, but you did not do the gallnuts. The ma'i hilchasa, what is this for? Leitzah Shabbos, this is for also carrying on Shabbos. The kamashire, what is the measurement of how big the diphthera would be? They lichtav alavas a get. It's unbelievable. The Gemara tells me that the diphthera was used to write the get, which is exactly the opposite of Rabbi Yehuda ben Basir's halacha. Rabbi Yehuda ben Basir said you cannot write a get on diphthera. And we say, what is the measurement of diphthera for Shabbos, for carrying on Shabbos? It's the size that you would use to write a get on, which would mean that you can write a get on diphthera, or at least it was written on diphthera, right? That would be something. Each of these measurements is something that would be the common usage.
Did you say the gallnuts were the material to seal the paper?
Yeah, there was. That was also put on some sort of coating on it. But the gallnuts were also used for the process, the tanning process.
The flour would give it the coating, so you could tell.
I don't know if the flour was the coating. These were all flour would not give it the coating. Flour was just any tanning leather. They would put flour on it. I think all of these things would pull out the moisture of the leather to turn it into this dry leather. Otherwise, basically leather is just like this smelly, rotten meat, and that's what it smells like until it turns into leather, and then but otherwise it looks like something that's just going to go bad. I did it once. I did tanning leather once. I got a hide from Chicago, and because we're learning Hilchos Shabbos, I wanted to do it with my class. We got it. We got this piece. You have to scrape it away. It smells, but it's very hard. Your arms get so tired. You're like pulling at this thing, scraping and scraping. You tack it up onto a board. Otherwise, there's no way of holding it. You put, tacks in and then just scrape it, and then they would put on. No, it was a field trip. Sorry?
In Western Massachusetts, I visited a factory like that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it must have stunk.
Yeah, it did. But I had on stand, it was a huge hide. What you just described on a human scale. The whole hide.
Wow.
Scrape it.
In Chassidus, it talks about ibud iris, avoda. Avoda talks about working the leather. It's considered like the hardest work. Anyway, okay, but it's not such a problem because we have the opinion of the Chachamim that say that it's mutter to write on this. So, okay, we're all set. We can write a get on diphthera according to the Chachamim. It could be erased according to the Chachamim. We're going to have to discuss that. It doesn't, right? It could be a problem. Chachamim machshim, the Chacham say you could write on it. Man Chachamim, who are the Chachamim? Amar Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar says, who's Rabbi Lazar? Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas. He's an Amira. He's a Talmudic sage. Says it's the opinion of Rabbi Elazar. It's the opinion of Rabbi Lazar, who's the Tanaic sage. They had the same name, so it could be a little confusing over here. But Rabbi Lazar, the first one that we mentioned is Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas. He's the Amira, he's the friend of Rabbi Yochanan. And then Rabbi Lazar, the Tana, is Rabbi Lazar ben Shemua. He's the one that has the opinion, Damar, Edi Masira Karti. that what executes the get are the delivery of the get in front of the witnesses that watch the delivery, watch the transfer. Now, the way it works is like this. They see the get being signed and given over. So they see that if not necessarily they see it being signed, they see the husband giving the get to the wife. And if there would have been a condition in there, they would have known about any condition. So because they're Eidei Masira, in other words, the actual writing of the get is not so important because we have people that are watching the process. And those people, even though they're not signing on it, but they're more significant. So they would tell us if there was any condition. If I don't rely on the Eidei Masira, I just rely on documents. We just do documentation here. So then documentation cannot be forged. But if we're dealing with the human intervention, we have actual people here that watch the delivery. So then we're not so concerned about the documentation because we spoke to them, to the people, and they told us there was no conditions attached, no stipulations attached to this get. So how could the Chachamim say that the get should be kosher if the paper that was used to write could be forged? Because we actually have people that watch the delivery. That's the Eidei Masira. Amar Rabbi Lazar, and Rabbi Lazar says, which is Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas, Leihichshir Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar ben Shamua did not validate this get. That it's permissible to be used paper or parchment that could be forged. Ela la'alter. That's only if the Eidei Masira do this right away. What they would do is that they bring the get right away to a best and right after it's delivered, and they say that she can get married. In other words, we're not going to believe them days later. It has to be an immediate. Before she get married, she has to wait 3 months. That's true, but she has to get a tour. She has to get the Bezdin needs to tell her that she can now get married. That they do immediately, right after they watch the delivery. However, Aval Mikana Nasari Yamim, like, but if they're going to wait 10 days, then no. Then we're going to already be worried that maybe they forgot the stipulations that were there because it's 10 days later. They're going to look at the document. The document doesn't support it but the document could be forged. So we don't know. So the only time we're going to trust these witnesses is if they come to the best and right away and arrange for her to get that tour that she could get married. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, you could wait 10 days. If there was a stipulation, they would surely remember. Rabbi Lazar also says, this whole concept of relying on the human intervention, the people that were there, and using a document that could have been forged. But because the people are there, that's fine. We only do that for a get. Why? Because a get is something that you don't have to hold on to. Once she's permitted, she's permitted. However, but if you're relying on other documents, that you're going to have to hold them in a file, and those documents you're going to pull out later, and it's written on paper that could be forged, that's going to be problematic. Yirmiyah told the people that they would going into exile, said that they should still buy land, and you should put it into pitchers to preserve it. You know, they would keep documents inside clay pitchers like they did in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It would preserve it for many days. So that way, he was telling them that documents you have to hold on to. If a deed for a house, you have to hold on to that. So therefore, you can't rely on Eidei Masira for those types of documents. Rabbi Yochanan Amar afilu b'shtaros, no, you could rely on, you could use it even for other documents. It says that you're going to put it away. Going to hold it for a long time. How are they going to remember? Maybe the people won't be around. So that's just giving you good advice that you have to store it for many days. But that doesn't mean that you can't rely on the witnesses that you have right now. Okay.
This immediate requirement is immediately from what? What do you hint that this must be done?
Back on the get, we're talking about that they would go to the Beis Din and say that this woman is allowed to get married because they witnessed the divorce.
Oh,
And
this isn't about the delivery of the document.
no, the document was delivered in front of these two witnesses. Then they would go to the Beis Din and say that she's allowed to get remarried.
Uh-huh.
Then she comes forward with this forged document. She erases this condition.
And then she comes forward with a forged document, and we say, no, the witnesses told us there was no condition or whatever. We say, we have to ask the witnesses. Okay.
Why does she change it? Why she
He could probably make a stipulation that it would be impossible for it to keep. You want a get? Okay, I'll give you a get, but here's the stipulation. You have to,
She's illegal, right? You can't do that. But
you can make a stipulation, but she doesn't want to keep the stipulation. So she'll just erase it.
So the witnesses come in and say, okay, they're divorced, but there's a stipulation.
Yeah.
But she can't
Or
keep
there's no stipulation. In other words, the document is able to be forged, but because we have witnesses, we're not worried about that. Okay. Yeah, I don't know how people use documents today. I mean, you could basically make anything, no? You can take signatures from one place onto another. You can do anything you want with documents. Yeah. I can do it on the computer.
If you're a rabbi, you wouldn't do it.
I know, but let's say the documents that said you were vaccinated for whatever, and you had to bring a paper that said that from the lab. I mean, I could print that out. If I got one from one kid, just type in the name, and it's. How do people use documents?
Then I would check it with the master.
Oh yeah, if you have to call in, you have to check. Yeah. Okay, so that's a different story.
Here they don't have that.
They don't have
Sent through.
right. You send the document from one place to another. How do you validate back then? Right. Everything is recorded, right? Electronically, I assume. Yeah. Okay, we have a new Mishnah. Everyone is valid. Everyone is acceptable to write a get. You can even use a deaf mute, a shaita, an imbecile, or a child. They could write a get. You have to figure out why. Let's see if you can guess. Why? How could you trust all these people to write a get? We just learned it. We learned the answer today.
Maybe they don't consider the
We didn't really learn it today. We learned it in the past.
Maybe they don't really consider the writing.
Very good. Hillel got it. So the writing is not so important. The main thing would be the signatures, which is the opposite of what we learned today. Today we learned that the signatures are not important because there was the witnesses,
Right.
the witnesses that watched the delivery. But if you take the opposite opinion, you would hold that the writing is not important. It's the signatures that's important.
The witnesses also.
And the witnesses are secondary. Well, there's two witnesses there. There's signatures. There's witnesses that signed, and there's witnesses that watch. So Ha'isha Kisevas then says that a woman is allowed to write her get.
Oh,
Now, if she's allowed to have it, and she's going to have to give it to her husband to give it to her, but she can do the writing of it. And if there's a ksuba that needs to be paid, usually the woman would write the receipt for that ksuba and give it to the husband when he pays it. But here, the husband can write his own receipt and then have it ready for when it's paid. Get it signed. We have to see what that means. Because the validity of the get is only in the signatures. We have to figure that out. That would explain why they can write the get. But let's see. Gemara says, "V'la b'nei dayaninu." How are they allowed to write a get? They don't have intelligence to be able to know who they're writing it for. That they're writing it for this woman, for this man. That's bilishma. It's a chereshet of a cotton. It's a deaf mute, it's an imbecile, and a child. Amar Rav Huna says, "Ushi gadol imad al gaba." We're talking about that we have an adult there that's watching them, that's telling them who to write it for. Because he's whispering into their ear, write it on behalf of this person, write it on behalf of this person, repeat after me. I'm writing this on behalf of so-and-so. So then we know that it was done properly. Amalei Rav Nachman Elamiyata, if that's the case, Rav Nachman tells to Rav Huna, if you can use an Aymed al Gabay, which means someone that's standing there and telling and giving instructions, why can't you use a non-Jew? If you're going to tell me that, yes, you can. But Tanya, but we have a brisa that says every common puzzle that you can't. If Aymed al Gabay works, then if the whole problem, we're making an assumption here that the problem why you can't use a non-Jew is because we think he's not going to do it lishma, but we have that same problem with a katan or a shaita or a cherish, and over there we resolve the problem by saying that there's a gadol, there's an adult, a Jew that's standing there and giving them instructions. So if that's the whole problem with the non-Jew, then with an adult there it should work. Gemara says, "You can't use a non-Jew because even though you're giving him instructions, but in his mind he's doing exactly the opposite from your instructions. He's writing it correctly, which you're going to check over, but he's thinking the whole time, I'm writing this get not for Shimona, whatever. I'm writing it for some other, from other name." Okay. Other Amar of Nachman. Nachman then retracted from his question. He says, "Lav milsi damri." What I said is not correct. When you look further, we're going to have another Mishnah today that's going to say that you can use anyone to be a shliach for a get, except for a chereshet of a katan, someone that's blind, and the non-Jew. Well, the fact that it says clearly a non-Jew cannot be used to bring the get, and when it comes to the writing of the get, it didn't say that. Michlal, that implies that you can use a non-Jew to write a get. From the fact that it says it here but not there, that tells me that it says it there but not here. That tells me that the non-Jew would have been permissible to write a get. So what we said now was that the non-Jew is going to do it on his own, and you can't trust him. That's not really true. Really, you can use a non-Jew to write a get. But we have a brisa with kechavim pasal that we have a clear brisa that says that a non-Jew cannot write the get. That brisa, don't worry about that brisa. That's Rabbi Elazar. Damrei de Mesira karti being ksiva l'shma. You can't use. Oh, so it's going to work like this. You just switch the whole pshat in the Mishnah right now.
I'm saying if a Gentile writes or signs a get, it's meaningless because he doesn't have to do it to begin with.
He's writing a get for someone else. He has a nice hand. He has a nice handwriting.
Oh, okay.
And we asked him to write the get.
Is there a shema in there?
So to avoid to resolve the lishma issue, we would say that maybe that we have someone standing on top of him to help him with the shema. But we said that we can't trust him like that because he does things on his own. Even when you're giving him instructions, he's going to be thinking about that it's not for the sake of a get. Anyway, Rav Nachman has a proof from another Mishnah that it is acceptable for him to write a get. So it can't be that it's because we have someone standing on top of him. So we switch the whole story here. And we switch it to this. We say that the fact that you can use a chereshet of a katan to write a get, it's not because we have someone standing on top of him, like Rav Huna said. It's rather because we're going like the opinion where the writing of the get is not significant. It's the writing of the get doesn't need to be lishma. That was the view of Reb Meir, which we're about to learn. And why do we have a statement that says that a non-Jew cannot write a get? That's because that statement was made by Rebbe Lazar that says the writing of the get is significant and doesn't need to be lishma. We're about to get into it right now. So you'll see. Right. Right. So that would only be according to the other opinion. Amar of Nachman.
Didn't we already learn back on, I don't know, Yud or Yud Aleph, that we trust contracts written by a court,
Yeah,
but not by the individual?
but Hillel was mentioning that we would trust contracts that were signed even by a non-Jew,
Right.
as long as you signed afterwards. Now, by a kuti. Now, maybe that's referring to the other opinion that holds that the signatures are not significant. It's only the Eid Masira. Yeah. The Gemara actually says that. It's talking about Beid Masira Kedur Abelasa Damer Eid Masira Karti. The Gemara actually says that. Yeah. That's why it's going to be very hard to hold anyone down over here to anything, because they can always just slip out and say, I'm following Rabbi Loza, I'm following Rabbi Meir. You can.
They don't hold that the signatures are important. They hold that the
No, it works like this. The way you set it up is like this. If the writing of the get is the more important than the signatures on the get, then that would mean that where do I have my main witnesses? That would be the delivery, the witnesses that watch the delivery. That's the opinion of Rabbi Lazar. He holds the two ends of the get are important. The writing of it, signatures no, delivery witnesses yes. That's Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Meir's view is the writing is not important. The signatures are yes important. Delivery is not so important. So Rabbi Lazar takes the sides. Rabbi Meir takes that center action, the signing of it. So it goes like this now. Amar Rav Nachman, Rav Meir. Rav Nachman says that Rav Meir would say, "Afilu matzo ba'ashpa." Let's say he found a get that someone had written for his wife, but he didn't want to use, and he threw it out in the garbage. She burnt the food one night, but she made a nice breakfast in the morning, so he threw the get out. And it turns out it has the same names as exactly what this guy wants. His wife burnt the breakfast in the morning. So he takes the get out of the garbage. Chasmu, he gets witnesses to sign it. But he gives it to a kosher, it's going to be kosher. Now it clearly was not written lishma. It was written for someone else. But that's not a problem according to Reb Meir, because according to Reb Meir, it only needs to be signed lishma. Reb Meir holds that the signing of it is Eisvei Rav Nachman. Rav asks Rav Nachman a question. Rav is a student. Says, Rav Nachman told her, says, because of la lishma, he asked, you have to write the get for her, which means that it has to be written lishma. My love ksivas a get. Says, because of, you have to write it. What are you telling me? It could be written, not lishma. Says, like, chasim esedim. That because of, according to Reb Meir, is referring to the signing of the witnesses, which, by the way, signing is also done with writing. That's how you sign, you write. So the word because of is referring to the signing of it. Eisvi Rav has another question. Kol get shnichtav shleil shemisha pasal. If the get was not written for this, for the intention of this woman, it's pasal. Ema, see, and it needs to be written for the intention of the woman. So it says Ema shenechtam shleil shemisha. Adjust it to say it wasn't signed for the woman. That's going to be pasal. Eisvi has another question. Shukaisvai, when he writes it, it's as if he wrote it lishma. And what's going on over here? My love. Well, how do you explain that statement? When he writes it, it's as if he wrote it lishma. So we say, explain like this. My love, it must be When he writes the main part of the get, the tairif, which he called the what did he call it? Dr. Stein called it yesterday. What you fill in, the placeholders. When you write the placeholders lishma, you write the name and the date lishma. Kilo kaisvul taifus lishma. It's as if you wrote the template lishma. In other words, the main part of the document that needs to be written lishma would be the placeholders. The template is standard, so that's good enough to have their intention by the placeholders. Where it says law, and wait, 1 second, that would create a question for us, because that would tell me that you definitely need the writing of the get lishma. Which part of the writing, the placeholder, is more important than the template. Where it says loy, that's not what it means. When you sign it lishma, it's as if you wrote the placeholders lishma. But the main thing of lishma was the signing of it, according to Rav Meir. If you want, we could do this a little different. We could say Hani Masnisin Rav Meir. I'm sorry. Hani Masnisin Mani. Who is the author of our Mishnah? Say, how are we doing our Mishnah? He says that everyone can write the document, and we were following the view that it was the opinion of Rav Meir that the writing of the document is not significant as long as it's signed properly. We could say that really our Mishnah, who's the author of our Mishnah? Rebbe Lazar. Really, it's Rebbe Lazar. No. Our Mishnah, we have to read it like this. Our Mishnah is going to be the view of Rav Meir. But these other Mishnayos that Rava keeps quoting, that says that it needs to be written lishma, and Rav Nachman keeps answering that when it says written, it really means signing. You could say that all of those are just following the opinion of Rebbe Lazar that actually holds that it needs to be written lishma. Because Rebbe Lazar takes the two ends of the get, the writing of it and the delivery of it. Those are the main parts. That's another way of answering up all of the brises, all of Rava's questions. Okay, we started off explaining that why are deaf mute, an imbecile and a child allowed to write the get even though they don't have the right intentions. We said we had a gadol aimed al gaba. We had an adult that was giving them instructions to make sure that they do it properly. Then we came along with Rav Nachman's view, and Rav Nachman said that it was talking about the opinion of Rav Meir, who holds that it doesn't need to be written lishma. That's why it's fine. Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel says, he has another teretz. What the child is writing and what the Chereshet is writing, that's talking about only the template. But they leave the space, they leave the placeholders.
Now, when you say placeholder, is it like a space where you put the different parts,
The names and the
date?
yeah. We're talking about that you're leaving over the placeholders. Rebbe Lazar, and it's following the view of Rebbe Lazar that says the writing of the get needs to be lishma. And which part of the writing? It's the placeholders. Reb Zrika Amar Reb Yechanan Einat Torah. Reb Zrika says name of Reb Yechanan. That what we just heard, that's not really accurate. My Einat Torah, what do you mean? Amar Baba Kan Haidiacha Shen Kayach Lishma. Over here, it's telling you that the lishma is not so significant, at least not on the writing of the get. For Reb Meir, it's really Reb Meir. This Mishnah tells me that you don't have to be so strict about lishma. It's the Reb Meir's view is that the main writing of the get is the signing of the get. But Rabbi Bar Bechana said the name of Reb Yechanan that the Mishnah is not Reb Meir, it's really Rebbe Lazar. And those are different sages that are saying over things in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, but it's not considered a contradiction because Rabbi Yechanan taught it once like this, he taught it once like that. This student said it over this way, that student said it over that way. Okay, different ways of explaining why anyone can write the get. Now we say a kol kshem lahavias a get. Anyone is kosher to bring the get. This is a new mission. Bring the get means that the husband makes a shliach, says, I want you to take this get to my wife. Chutz, the exception to this is chereshet b'katan, a deaf mute, an imbecile, and a child. He can't use them as a shliach. Suma, a blind person, David Kechavim, a non-Jew.
Didn't we say a non-Jew could, I think it was from Babel.
He said a non-Jew can be a shliach for a get.
No, I think he was
Maybe the sign. Yeah, maybe. According to that opinion, that the signature is unimportant or something like that. Rav Nachman was of the opinion of Rav Meir. Rava, back in the beginning, Rava's opinion was, that's a good question. Rava's opinion was that the signing of the reason why you had to say b'fanei nechtav b'fanei achav was to validate the signatures. Yeah, that would have to follow. What the Gemara did at the first pages was said it can't even follow Reb Meir. According to Reb Meir, he wouldn't have to say b'fanei nechtav in front of me. It was written because he doesn't need the written lishma. Follow this other view of Rabbi Yehuda. Said that's what the Gemara did at the beginning. Okay. Can't use a blind person. You can't use a non-Jew. I have on the side of my my Gemara a note from one of the commentators on Shulchan Aruch that you can use an apostate. Someone that converted to Christianity. He's Jewish, but he converted. He could be a shliach for a get. Maybe he was able to travel around more. You wanted to find someone that was traveling. No.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
What about Epicurus?
Yeah, it looks like the same that he would be considered. Yes, you could use him. It says only a non-Jew you can't use. Oh, that's going to come up soon. Hold on, that's going to be a big discussion. Okay, what about Kibala Katan V'Higdal? Let's say the child got the get and he's supposed to bring it. Well, the only thing is he's too young. So he waits until he is bar mitzvah. You know, what's probably happening here was he was given the get because he was going away to yeshiva after his bar mitzvah. So, oh, you're going over there. I have an old wife over there. I forgot to divorce her. Can you take the get over there? So, oh, you're going to Voloshin. So he takes the get. So, but when does he leave? He leaves her. When does he reach her? He reaches her when he's already an adult. Let's say Cheresh v'nis pakach. Let's say he was a deaf mute, but then after when he received the get to deliver, but then he became, he was able to hear and speak. Suma, he was blind when he received it, but v'nis patach, and then he was able to see. Shaita v'nis tafa, which he was originally an imbecile, but now he became sane. Let's say he received the get as a non-Jew, but then he converted, and he goes and delivers the get after the conversion. All of those are possible. Because he received it at a time that he wasn't able to become a messenger. Let's say he started off regular person, and then he loses his hearing and his speech. Then he gets it back. Or he started off that he could see, then he goes blind, then he gets it back. He does that, what's the surgery called? And they take away the glasses.
Tommy John.
What's it called?
Tommy John.
They do this laser,
LASIK.
LASIK?
I think so.
They do the surgery, now we can see. Or he was crazy. He starts off normal. He went crazy temporarily, and then he comes back to be normal. That's going to be kosher because when he received it, he was healthy. And in the middle, he had a temporary lapse of something, and then he comes back to being when the delivery is good. And Zahaklal, the rule is kosher tchilas sefer b'das is kosher, as long as when he received it and at the end He's all with the intention, so then it's all kosher. Very interesting. Today we would say when he received it, he was on his medicine, and he went off the medicine, and then when he delivered it, he was back on.
Or he was, he called something, went to the hospital.
Right. The Gemara says like this: I understand why a child can't be a shliach because he doesn't have the intention. And you need to have intention to be a shliach. Over there, they're not fully competent. David Kechavim Namid Lav Bar Hetero. David Kechavim, there's nothing to do with him. You can't be a shliach for something that you don't even have those halachas. The word Bar Hetera is a little surprising. I would have thought he's not B'Toiras, Lav Bar Toirasu, not Hetera. How do they translate Hetera? Yeah. Not subject to the halachas that permit a woman to remarry via those first. Okay. Okay. But he's not even subject to the halachas of marriage either. Okay, whatever it is. I wanted to switch the word a little bit to say that it meant Tairas, the laws of, but it's not, it's clearly the commentary is not doing that. Saying that it doesn't go on, he doesn't go under the category of laws that require a get to permit the
Following lines is the person can have service as an agent.
unless if it's not their if it can't be an agent for something that they're not involved in. Elasuma my life. What's wrong with the blind person? Blind person is fully competent, you just can't see where they're going. What's the problem? Problem with the blind person is the secondary problem, because he doesn't know who he got the get from and he doesn't know who he's giving it to. Yeah. There was a story, not in our best, but there was a story of let me see what happened. They were harassing a man to give a get. So they got his twin brother to go in and to say that he's the guy, he's the husband, and to give the get. And what was going to happen afterwards is that when he was going to walk out, he was going to say, "I fooled you. I wasn't the real husband." It was one of, they play around with all types of. The husband side was doing it. They just wanted to stop the thing. They would give the get and then later on claim that it wasn't real. It was the brother. I don't know how they caught it though. They caught it somehow. They ask for, when you come in to give a get, they ask for identification. But you can have the brother's ID.
Twins have the same fingerprints. That's not valid.
The twins have the same fingerprints. Naftali? Identical twins?
The theory is no. I mean, you don't know if it's a good theory until somebody comes along who has the same print as someone else.
Uh-huh.
But the theory is that no two people have the same print.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Okay.
So
he doesn't
quick question. So when someone says B'fanei Niftach, B'fanei Niktam, is this referring to the time of Masira or subsequently when they're talking to the Beis Din?
This would be by the Masira, which would be done in front of a Beis Din coming from out of town. When it gets coming from out of town, in the B'fanei Nechtav, I think it's said in front of the Beis Din. You have to say it in people.
You bring the woman into the Beis Din.
Yeah, normally a get that's just being done by the husband does not need to be done in front of the Beis Din. But when you have a shliach coming, he has to say B'fanei Nechtav, it needs to be done in front of the Beis Din. That's what we learned before. In front of how many people does he have to say it? 2 or 3, and that was a whole discussion.
Right.
He's counted as one of the.
Right.
Okay. So we have an explanation why you can't use a blind person. Maskefler Rabbi Yosef. It's very interesting because Rav Sheshes, first of all, was blind, and Rabbi Yosef is blind, and these are the ones that are discussing the laws of a blind person. Rabbi Yosef has a very interesting question. He says, it's supposed to be Ihachi, or Heich Summa Mutter B'ishtei. How is a blind person allowed to be together with his wife? He doesn't know who it is. Heich B'nei Adam Mutar B'nei B'layla. How is any man allowed to be with his wife at night? Doesn't know everyone is sort of blind at night when there's no lights on. So how does he know who she is? Ella b'tfiasena dekala. The reason why he's allowed to be with his wife at night when it's dark is because he recognizes her voice. So why can't we say that the blind person can take the get by recognizing the voice of the husband and the voice of the woman? Okay. Elam Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says, we're dealing with the get that's coming from out of Eretz Yisrael. The Boile Meimar, it's supposed to say in front of me, it was written, in front of me, it was signed. He can't say that because he was never able to see it. The Gemara says, well, if that's the whole issue, if that's the case, we learned that if he started off, he's asking like this. If he started off that he was able to see, he has his vision, and then he goes blind. The Matziyamar, he's able to say, I saw it being written, got blind on the en route. Hachinami, the kasher, you want to say that it's kasher? The problem is, Vaktani, the Mishnah says, the only way it would be permissible is if he started off with his vision, went blind in middle, and then he got it back at the end. According to this, according to the way Rabbi Yosef is explaining, why should he need to get it back at the end? The whole point was to be able to say b'fani nachtam, which he did see. Gemara answers. One second, I didn't finish the question. That's only if he can see at the end, obviously, according to this Mishnah. Gemara says, the truth is, even if he doesn't come back and is able to see. Because the other cases, it was relevant that the person gets his sanity back. Time of the chazar v'nishtapa. So Tananami, so this case, by the blind person, it wasn't actually significant to say it. It was just, we threw that in because everyone else over there, it was important that they had their sanity at the beginning and at the end. Okay. Amar Ravashi Dekanami. I'll prove it to you. The Tani, Zaklal, the rule is, says, the rule is that anyone that starts off and ends off with intelligence is kosher. Doesn't say anyone that starts off eligible and ends eligible is kosher. Why? Because the summa, the blind person, has das the whole time. He just has another issue. So the fact that we, in the rule, even though that was one of the examples that he has to start off with his vision and end up with the vision, but when we said the zehaklal, we didn't include the summa in that because we said anyone that starts off with sanity and ends with sanity is good. The summa, of course, always has sanity. It always has intelligence. Just didn't see. So for that, he only needs to see at the beginning, but not at the end. I guess we'll leave it over here. Okay.
Thank you. Have a good day. Kol tov.